Hello, everyone, and welcome in to CrushTheStreet.com. I got an exciting guest on the line with me today, Andy Hoffman. He's regular here at Crush the Street. And you know what? He's got some new changes going on. He's got his own website now, CryptoGoldCentral.com. It's a subscription based website, and it's his. And you know what, this is pretty exciting. He's one of the smartest, hardest working analysts in the precious metals cryptocurrency community, and he's just got an acumen for the markets here. And you know what, our people have excuse me, grown to really like Andy Hoffman. I really like Andy Hoffman a lot, and I want to have him on. Andy, thanks for coming on the line with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to debut in the precious metal community on this channel, because yourself and Future Money Trends have been so helpful and supportive to me over the years. And yes, I've made a break. Look, I spent pretty much the last 15 years devoted solely to precious metals. And while I still love gold more than anything, which is why it's a big part of my new website, it's quite clear from anyone listening and reading me over the last year and a half, that I am at least as excited about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And therefore, I think it was the right time to move on from the precious metal world and into the world of Bitcoin. So as of just a couple of days ago, I launched my new website, CryptoGoldCentral.com. It's really amazing with technology how you can build a website and get a business going in such a short amount of time, but I've done it. And for $225 a year, an entire year, you'll just get an incredible amount of private content along with all the public content like these interviews. In fact, I've been live for less than 3 days. I think I posted over 20 blog posts already and lots of tweets and everything. So it's just very exciting. Some of it's about gold. A lot of it is about cryptocurrency. And I really look forward to, as I call it, moving along in my quest to the future of money in what I call the sound money blog of the 21st century. So go to CryptoGoldCentral.com and take a look at it. There's a 7-day money-back guarantee, and I will move on to talking about the world.
That's exciting, Andy. Andy, so I noticed on the title of the website, it's CryptoGoldCentral.com. Is there a reason why you didn't necessarily box yourself into Bitcoin and putting that in your domain?
Right. Well, look, people who listen to me, read me, know very well that I'm a diehard Bitcoin person. But they also know that I'm a diehard Litecoin person. And more importantly, if you're going to discuss Bitcoin, you have to discuss the whole cryptocurrency space and be knowledgeable about it. I mean, all the factors that affect Bitcoin affect all these other things, and vice versa. And of course, since I believe that crypto is going to replace fiat currency, what I call the ultimate monetary death cross, it's a cumulative thing. And when I say gold is in crypto gold, yes, I'm focused far more on gold than other precious metals, but I'm going to talk in general about precious metal markets, even if my true desire or my true love is gold itself.
Of course. Well, you know what? We've seen some madness going on right now in the physical world with these violent storms, Harvey, Irma. It's been said that they're going to cost around $200 billion in damages and repairs. It's insane, and God bless all of those who have been impacted by these storms. So let's start off with the precious metals, if that's okay, and then we'll move over into the cryptocurrency. It just seems to me, Andy, we get eases in the storms now and ease in the news with North Korea. And we have the stocks moving higher. That's this bias towards the upside. And then precious metals moving back down again. And it's so weird to me that there's just this bias. If we go back to normal, gold goes down. And if we go back to normal, stocks go up. And we just need this overly bad news for precious metals to move higher and overly bad news for stocks to go down. And I mean, is this just give me a little idea here of just what we're seeing as of the last month here, because it's been pretty exciting with gold strongly over 1,300, and I was starting to get some excitement over this, and here we have these moves back down.
Right. Well, let me say the first thing, probably the best thing about what I'm doing now is for the first time, I don't have to stare at zero hedge all day long. I don't have to commentate on stock markets. And yes, I certainly include it when I'm talking about what's going on in cryptocurrency and gold. I have to give the backdrop of what's going on in financial markets. But the main thing that I've had to deal with for so long is that the markets are rigged. I mean, it's just 100% rigged. Markets are not going up because Irma is passed. And their gold is not going down because things are normal in North Korea. It's almost like they act like, oh, thank God it's passed, now we can go up. The stock market barely budged from its all-time high on a global basis around the time of North Korea and Harvey and Irma. It's really just all games being played with the algorithms run by the central banks. I mean, we just learned today that the Japanese central bank now officially owns 3/4 of all the equity ETFs. And that the Swiss bank has been the biggest buyer of Apple stock in the entire world for the past 2 years. So why anyone believes that markets are, quote, moving based on news is insane. As for gold, I mean, look, it's really bullish that it's back up. Both gold and silver are above their 5.5-year downtrend lines and above their 50-month moving averages. Really bullish. So despite all of this manic suppression, they are gradually rising because the fundamentals are supporting them, and now the technicals are at their back. But what's going on in financial markets has nothing to do with news. It's still 100% rigged all the time, which is why, among other reasons, I love watching the crypto and participating in the crypto market because, well, yes, there are bad actors involved in it. And yes, as I tweeted the other day, the highly liquid, unregulated Bitcoin market is the best insider trading platform in history. For like Chinese FUD articles about exchanges and ICOs, they are generally speaking freely traded. And so when they move, they're moving on based on fundamentals. So you can rely on what's going on in the markets for a basis of what's actually going on in the real Bitcoin economy. So, what's going on in the world? I would still say .com valuations in a Great Depression era. And that's what all the real data tells you, car sales, retail sales, capital expenditure, durable goods, even the jobs data has been bad despite all the adjustments that try to make it look better. So, no, nothing's changed. Things have gotten worse. And, Harvey and Irma, really, really bad for the economy. And if anyone actually believes that there's anything positive going on, or I should say that Wall Street doesn't lie through their teeth about everything, consider that Bill Dudley, the former Goldman Sachs economist who's been the head of the New York Fed for the past 3 or 4 years, he actually, on an interview on CNBC of all places, said that Irma and Harvey are good for the economy. Good for the economy. So again, we're talking about just the big three: money manipulation, market manipulation, money printing, and propaganda have controlled the scene. But when you look in the cryptocurrency world, those things don't work so much. And right now, the tide is rising for the fiat usurpation by cryptocurrency, and that's why it's great to watch both worlds at once.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that is good as far as what happened with Harvey and Irma, certainly not for the people who went through it and the people who had their businesses destroyed, their houses destroyed, and cars and all those different things. $200 billion they're estimated in damage. But maybe those who want to go in and buy up distressed assets. That's the only thing I can think of, in the fact that they're going to have to pour capital in to rebuild those places. But I'm not sure if that's going to be a net benefit in terms of what was lost versus what was gained. And certainly not for the people there.
Definitely not a net benefit. There's nothing positive about the destruction of property. First of all, the people who lost that property go bankrupt. And second of all, to rebuild it, you're taking capital, which generally speaking is borrowed, or in this case, a lot of it's going to be printed out of thin air by the government, to allocate it to non-productive things like simply replacing. No, there's nothing good. This is just spin. And when you're manipulating markets, you can actually say this stuff. You could say anything you want. You could say war with North Korea is great because look, the stock market is higher. But the fact is, of course, all you have to do is look at the debt levels and look at the currency purchasing power and look at the state of the actual real economy of the world to realize that it's all BS. I mean, the 1% benefit from this scheme to prop up the stock market and the bond market, and everyone else suffers from it.
Well, Andy, let's move on to cryptocurrency here, specifically Bitcoin. And as you know, and as you've been documenting, Bitcoin has been surging. And I was reading today, Arthur Hayes, a former Citigroup trader who runs BitMEX, a Hong Kong-based crypto exchange, thinks blockchain is lighting a fuse that will ignite open combat between true cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and a new digital fiat controlled by central banks. And, I just wonder, he's been talking about that it's this destruction of the banks and this destruction cryptocurrency is. And that's something that you've been saying too, that Bitcoin and gold are the twin destroyers of the fiat currency regime. And I'm wondering, what your thoughts on this latest news is.
Yeah, well, one, take the guy with a grain of salt. He's from a Citibank trader. But if he's running BitMEX, which is one of the largest Bitcoin exchanges, and it's like he just doesn't get it. He's saying that Bitcoin is competing with soon to be created government digital currencies, and we already have government digital currencies. I mean, the only difference between, say, Fed coin or ECB coin and what we have now is that they can monitor it more for basically for what they call money laundering, basically like Big Brother-like. But it's still a digital currency system right now, and that would be the furthest thing from anonymous, which is where, by the way, Bitcoin is going to be pretty soon, now that it has its scaling in place and there's all these fungibility fixes that are going to be added onto it. So no, I mean, Bitcoin is not fighting against digital government coins. We already have digital government coins. It's fighting against the fiat currency system in general. I mean, and then that's where the war is going to be fought. I mean, that's, if the Chinese were indeed shutting down exchanges and stuff, it's because they're scared of people fleeing. I mean, this is not the first time this year. They had those capital controls instituted. They banned for 5 months the withdrawal of Bitcoin from the exchanges. They're scared that people are going to flee the yuan and go into Bitcoin. It's nothing to do with that they're getting ready to create China coin or yuan coin. So no, this is a system. When we say that gold and Bitcoin are the twin destroyers of the fiat regime, they are fighting against fiat currency. They're not fighting against new cryptocurrency systems, and they are going to win, but they are going to have to fight to the death. I mean, look at how much gold and silver have had to put up with and are putting up with to this very minute, worse than ever. And so you think governments aren't going to fight back? Of course they are. The problem is that this is a decentralized system that anonymous people around the world can participate in, and they will participate in, because the central banks right now are completely out of control. They've destroyed the economy. They've taken over the wealth of the world by rigging the markets, and people are fed up around the world. So you're going to see some dramatic changes in the world in the coming years, and hopefully 2018 will be as big a step in the right direction as 2017 has been.
Andy, I asked Rick Rule about Bitcoin's run, and he was careful. He was saying just to be careful with anything that goes up and looks like a J curve. And not that he was discounting Bitcoin, but, he was basically saying be careful because the backside of a J curve looks the same but isn't as much fun. And, I got to acknowledge what he's saying because we have seen a big run in Bitcoin. But I tend to think that there's just still a lot more buyers to come into the market because we're just barely scratching the surface. And I think you would agree with that. But is there something to be said about so many people sitting on profits and essentially everyone being a happy seller in Bitcoin?
Well, first of all, everyone's not a happy seller. A lot of people came in at the top. I mean, we're down from 5,000 to 4,200, and a lot of the ICOs are down a lot more than that. So I wouldn't say everyone's a happy seller. And people who have been in from very, very lower levels really couldn't care less. And more importantly, the fundamentals are in our favor. I mean, we just got SegWit put in. There's all kinds of news out there about governments accepting Bitcoin and all the different applications that are being added to and the adoption. I just put out a little post on my blog about the localbitcoins.com volumes exploding higher. So look, a lot of times, people, anytime something goes up a lot, people are going to say it's a bubble. I mean, it's that simple, particularly when it's something like Bitcoin, which is, the it's against what they want to invest in, or more importantly, something that they didn't invest in. So it must be a bubble if they didn't invest in it. But the fact is, yeah, of course, it went up a lot. But what are we expecting to happen with it? And I mean, and again, I'm not expecting it to be a straight line. I mean, it would be nice if it goes up 5 times this year and it goes up 5 times next year and 5 times the next year, which could happen, but that doesn't often happen. I would argue that this is probably one of the most unique investment opportunities in history. So if anything, if it's going to happen with anything, it would be this. But with all the governments out there fighting it and all the all the changes going on in the fiat currency world right now, who knows? But to say it's up a lot, therefore it has to go down is ridiculous. I mean, first of all, the entire market cap of Bitcoin is what, $70 billion? Mm-hmm. That's nothing. I mean, it's big compared to a lot of companies, but Apple is what, 12 times that size? Litecoin is what, a $3 billion market cap? Is that a bubble because it's gone from 4 to 70 or 80? It's $3 billion. That's like a micro cap stock. So look, of course I'm wary, but I'm a buy and hold person, just like I'm a buy and hold person in gold. I know the fundamentals are in my favor, and I know governments and bad actors are out to stop it. And of course, there could be big corrections. And in the case of Bitcoin, there's like a big correction at least once a day, simply because it's so thin. And people need to realize that about, among other things, when you're constantly seeing Bitcoin, I'm looking at what it's done today alone, went from 4,200 to 4,380 and then down to 4,250 and then up to, to 4,300. Now it's 4,230. There's not that many Bitcoins out there. So it is very illiquid and it's prone to a lot of people getting scared and running out and then getting, FOMO and running in. So, but the fact is, the trend is great. The fundamentals are great. And if you're a person like me who believes that fiat currency is on its way out and crypto is on its way in, it could be the most undervalued investment ever. Whereas the stock market, I don't see any. Do you hear anyone talking about stock market bubbles? I don't hear much about it. On Wall Street, it's a buy, no matter what.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we're at .com. We literally have .com valuations. Valuations based on fraudulent accounting, I might add. And if you throw in inflation-adjusted valuations, they're even worse. Sentiment is the best it's ever been when the economy's falling apart and geopolitics are as bad as they've ever been. This is called rigged markets. It has nothing to do with reality. So, look, people need to look at the fundamentals and decide for themselves. And in the case of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, there's so many things that you have to consider aside from the things you're used to, because they are just completely alternative assets that no one understands. They're very difficult to buy and sell if you don't know what you're doing, and you really just got to take the time to do your due diligence. Believe me, it's worth the time.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Yeah, it's one of those things. People own real estate. People own stocks. And you hear these people saying that they're in bubbles. No, they own real estate. They own stocks. But those same people are saying that Bitcoin is in a bubble. And I might venture off to say that they don't own any Bitcoin. And I think that's true of the majority. Less than, not even a fraction of a percent of people own Bitcoin out there. And there's some statistics.
It's funny, Ken. There was an article, because obviously you're looking at Zero Hedge this morning, and one of the other articles said, according to Bank of America, this is the most compromised, government-owned criminal bank you're going to find. According to them, long Bitcoin is the most crowded trade on Wall Street, right? Mm. So I wrote another little post on that, and I said, if you believe that, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. I said, this is all about window dressing. This is all people who see Bitcoin is up a lot. So if you ask them, what do they own? They say, oh, I'm long Bitcoin. Just like, when Apple's going up, they say, well, I own Apple. Because we know very well, very well, that, you look around you, you'll be lucky, aside from on your network, to find anyone that owns Bitcoin. Most people don't even know what Bitcoin is, and they definitely have never heard of Ethereum or Litecoin. So to believe that everyone on Wall Street is long, and remember, when you're on Wall Street, right, you can only buy paper vehicles, right? It's not like if you're a hedge fund, you're allowed to go open accounts with Coinbase, let alone to take your own private keys and put Bitcoin on Trezors in the name of the hedge fund. All you can buy is like GBTC, this ultra thin, massively overvalued trust. So again, people will lie about everything. The lie that they own Bitcoin, the lie that they care about Bitcoin. Of course, people lie about what Bitcoin is and how it's doing. The fact is, it's doing amazing. And for anyone who's not in the sector, the fact that we finally got past this major scaling obstacle just a month ago, this SegWit, where we're now going to have a much more secure network that has the ability to do many greater things and get much larger, much faster, is lost on just about everyone in the world. So I think, again, fundamentally, there's a reason why it's $4,200 versus $420 barely a year ago. And whether it's down from 5,000 a month ago or up from 1,000 in January, the fact is the trend is up in both fundamentals and price.
Yeah. Andy, so let's talk about precious metals and Bitcoin. So they're two completely different things, for similar reasons, doing what they do. But can we anticipate what we saw in Bitcoin to happen in gold and silver in similar fashion? Or are they two completely different markets? Obviously, Bitcoin being adopted and used, and the network expanding, and the number of merchants accepting it. But then gold, for similar reasons, because people are getting out of the fiat monetary system and rushing into something else, rising. Can we expect that same sort of move? Or I'm just wondering if we can learn from this upward movement we've seen in Bitcoin and apply it to what we can expect with gold and silver.
I'll tell you, Ken, you ask amazing questions because, there's a lot of things that incorporate into that question. And look, the fact is, when I say twin destroyers of the fiat regime, it's in many ways it's for the same reason, and in many ways it's completely different. Because look, they're both a storage of value. Look, gold is purely a storage of value, and anyone that thinks it's quote money and that there's going to be a gold standard is just not paying attention to history. It's never succeeded. I shouldn't say it has succeeded as a gold standard for short periods of time until the government steal all the gold. And now we're in a digital world where when you look at the storing and moving gold around, yes, it can work. The Chinese and Russians can hold big pieces of gold and trade between it. But there's never going to be a gold standard because governments will never again be trusted to administer the gold. I mean, who are you going to trust? That the U.S. government says, okay, we have 8,133 tons, and even though we reneged on the gold standard in the 1930s and we reneged again in the 1970s, this time, despite having the most insanely crazy central bank and dishonest politicians, this time we're going to do it right. Of course, we don't even have the gold. We're not. It's not allowed to be audited, but we're going to do it right. And of course not. This is a digital age. Gold is going to be in the future what it has always been best at when governments haven't been commandeering it for these ridiculous gold standards that they inevitably destroy by stealing all the gold. It stores value. And in the case of gold, not only is it going to store value as the fiat currency system collapses, but it's been held down by this gold cartel, which has pretty much sold pretty much all of the physical inventory, and they've got all these paper contracts at it. So there's going to be a jump at some point when they're no longer in the game. And what the entire precious metal community, including myself, has believed for many years is that yes, you're going to have a crisis, and there's going to be a swamping of supply of the scarce supply with demand, and then they'll run out and the price will surge. And yes, that could still happen. I mean, look, if we have a black swan event, some really bad Europe, Brexit, or we go to war with North Korea, or something like that, the debt ceiling issue, actually cause us to default. Yeah, that could happen overnight. But more likely, I think the powers that be will keep trying to hold the price down. They're having more and more trouble as the price is getting close. Look, if we get over that 1375, 1400 level, now you're above the 2013, drive-by shooting attack of April 15th and 12th, right after Obama had his closed-door meeting. That with all the banks, and that started the big, decline for several years. And once you get above that level, you've now broken into territory where the traders are going to be looking up at that 1920 high again. But aside from that, if something crazy doesn't happen in the world, I think they'll try to keep holding the price down. But more importantly, while they're doing it, cryptocurrency is going to absolutely explode upon the planet. And whether there's a crisis or not, that's the beauty. I mean, we haven't had a quote crisis year, and look at what's happened with the Bitcoin. It's gone up 5 times. And all this capital is rushing into it. But just wait until we have any kind of crisis, that'll only accelerate it. So I think what you're going to see is precious metals are going to be held down, and held down may mean that they gradually grind up, and maybe we get to 1400 or 1500 until the governments start to realize that Bitcoin is the bigger monetary threat. And when they start to do that, and the whole world's attention is focused, and Wall Street actually does own Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and they're talking about it other than in just propaganda terms, like, this ridiculous Wall Street Journal putting out articles about the Chinese FUD, which they have no idea what they're talking about. They're just trying to scare people. And when people really are into it, like they were into NASDAQ tech stocks, and they're leaving the fiat currency systems, and bank balances are starting to go down, there's a lot more anonymous transactions that are outside of the system, then the government start to focus on Bitcoin. And the next thing you know, they are like, what are we even worrying about gold? No one's paying attention to it anymore. If it goes up, it's not going to have the same symbolic, scare into the system because everyone's focused on Bitcoin. So I think that, honestly, they're just going to disband at some point out of disinterest. And so we'll look up maybe a few years from now, oh, gold's $10,000. And no one cares. Governments are not trying to confiscate it. No one's worried that there's going to be windfall taxes or banning. I really think that's the end game for gold. And is even though it's less exciting than the previous game of an all-out collapse of the system and gold goes to $1 million an ounce, I think more likely, unless you do have hyperinflation, which probably we'll never get to because it's really hard for a first world nation to get there without the system having already had major changes like Bitcoin taking over it. I think it's going to grind up until eventually the world focuses more on Bitcoin, which will be a lot higher than it is today, and then gold and silver will just kind of be freed. But I do believe that gold is going to do a lot better. The gold-silver ratio is not going to fall as much as people think, because I think Bitcoin has really turned people on to the realization that you could store a lot of value in a very small package. And yes, the gold-silver ratio, theoretically, if it goes down to some tremendously low level, that would be the case. But for now, if you want to get the kind of returns that people expect in cryptocurrencies or even in gold, you're going to have to buy an awful lot of silver. So we'll see what happens. But I think that is something that's creeping into the mindset of the investment community.
Andy, you brought something up regarding the Chinese and the latest news that came out, less than a week ago or so, a week ago. They were talking about the ICOs, the crackdown on the ICOs. And really, when you read that at first, you're like, oh man, that's an attack on cryptocurrency. And maybe it is. But when you really look at that, it's almost good for the already established coins like Bitcoin or Litecoin, like you've been talking about, because these are new coins that are coming online. They're talking about the ICOs, not necessarily the ones that are already online. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I got thoughts. Well, look, when that news came out, I put out an article that was called "The Chinese, ICO Ban: The Best Imaginable News for Bitcoin," because Bitcoin and let's say Litecoin are not ICOs. I mean, there's no attack vector. That's why I like them so much. That's why they're doing so well.
But they got hammered, right?
Yeah. Unlike, let's say, Ethereum, which has the Ethereum Foundation run by Vitalik Buterin, which is a major attack vector. I mean, yeah, it would keep trading, but they could shut it down. I mean, they could do some serious damage. They could ban Ethereum. It would still trade, but it would be dramatically disabled. But you can't ban Bitcoin. And as for the ICOs, it's not even that you can ban ICOs, but you can really make it very difficult for them to trade because they're, unlike Bitcoin, which is incredibly liquid and traded both over the counter and in exchanges around the world. Most of these things are only traded in a handful of places and are very illiquid. And if you take out a major ICO market like China and almost make it criminal, yeah, I mean, you're going to kill them. And they should. Look, I believe truly that ICOs are going to be financing of the future, not the current Wild West type of ICOs, but to me, the sectors, the assets, the legacy assets, stocks and bonds are the ones that have been abused into oblivion. I mean, they are no longer vehicles for financing, they're vehicles for making the 1% rich, and they are extremely inefficient relative to how ICOs are come onto the market. So I believe that in time, that having blockchain type capital raising without all these banks and governments involved is going to be a great thing. But for now, the ICO market is completely out of control, and I'm all for stopping it. It's mostly scams. In fact, most of the ones that China's banning, you've never heard of. They're all Chinese. They're all tiny, and it's really incredible. There are thousands of them, and good riddance to them. But the method of financing is not going away. It's going to be around, and it's going to get stronger. And for now, that news in China, yeah, it went down, whether, it's true or not, to what extent, because everyone's thinking, well, that means China's going to stop Bitcoin next. And that's what this week's flood was about. They're going to close the exchange. But look, they've already done that. They did that in January. They closed the Chinese Bitcoin exchanges for like 5 months. Well, no, they didn't close them. They said you can't withdraw your Bitcoins for 5 months. And then they added all these AML, KYC kind of things. And, maybe they will do it again, but I'm not sure why they would do that. Especially because the Chinese citizens, they're tech savvy. They'll go to other countries where you can buy and sell. They'll go to local Bitcoins. And ultimately, it's not going to be bad for the price of Bitcoin. It'll just mean it's harder to find it. So the premiums that you have to pay in the over-the-counter market are going to soar. So look, this is, governments attempting to slow Bitcoin down, or as I said, it's the best insider trading platform ever. I mean, think about it. Let's say, because look, governments are clearly going to be buying Bitcoin if they haven't already. And in this kind of market, how difficult would it be for the Chinese government to have said, hey, you in the Caxton newsletter, put this article out saying that we're gonna ban the exchanges, and look at that, the price goes down $700 or $800, and everyone, the traders start dumping, and then they buy it up. I mean, it would be the absolute easiest thing in the world, and there's tons of entities that could do that in tons of countries. So the point is, what I'm saying about the whole world, it's a completely different world with completely different actors in it, and most of the journalism is online. It has nothing to do with the mainstream. So you got to do your homework. It took me 2 years to learn how this game works, and I'm still learning more every day. And most of it is learned on Twitter. I mean, I think my Crypto Gold Central, it might be the first subscription-based blog in the whole sector. And look at how far the sector has gone. It's still very young, and so you have to do your homework about all these things and understand how the Bitcoin market works and who the players are and what their motivations are. Because frankly, someone tweeted the other day, they said, I wish we could just ban China from Bitcoin. And I said, I'm thinking that would be amazing. The price would soar, because I'm so sick of hearing. Probably the number one reason that Bitcoin goes down is just constant rumors about China, about things that really have nothing to do with Bitcoin in the big picture. So just, again, I urge people to do as much homework as possible. Certainly join my website and listen to podcast stations like this one, because it's a brand new world, and you're going to be left behind if you don't do your due diligence and you listen to the mainstream tell you the lies that have destroyed the world for so long.
Andy Hoffman, everyone. CryptoGoldCentral.com. Check out his site. This is exciting stuff. Andy, you seem like you're unleashed, and it's exciting. You're doing what you love to do, and that's great. So any closing thoughts here before we say goodbye?
Yes, again, I really I couldn't encourage people more to I had an inflection point in not just my career but in my life where I started to question what I have been looking at. I mean, I've been obviously into crypto for several years now, but I'm realizing now that the world is changing so rapidly around me, and that's why I've completely changed where I'm focusing my attention. And I think that the mainstream is more criminal and dangerous and than it ever has been. And I think the world of cryptocurrency is more exciting and with more opportunity than anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. So, start looking in different sources. And certainly, look, come to my website. I have a 7-day money-back guarantee, $225. I mean, I probably will put out like 1,000 blog posts for that $225. And there's a money-back guarantee. But go there, listen to this website, to Crush the Street and others like it, because the world is changing fast. And I think that 12 months from now will be dramatically different than where we are even today.
Good deal. All right, Andy. Well, thanks for coming on Crush the Street. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to having you on in the very near future.
Great. Look forward.